Plains Angels is an initiative of the Greater Des Moines Partnership that connects Iowa-based angel investors with early-stage growth companies throughout the Midwest.
Thank you. So, pretty good so far?
Yeah.
I think so. I'm ready for lunch. Lunch pretty good? Speakers okay at lunch? Lunch speakers means nap. Yeah, that's my joke, Joe. Thought I'd go over a little better. Hey, so this next two slides kind of go back and forth. Yeah. I didn't do that. Maybe we could go back on this one. Okay. So the topic of this is finding the right investors. And the reason I broke it out into two slides is, it will come back down, is I think there's some real issues about investors. And I guess lunch was good because we started talking about the wrong kinds of investors, right? Ones that, I was kind of waiting for the word negative covenants to come up. And I think probably somebody else has that later today. But negative covenants could mean someone, you agree to a $500,000 round institutional investor, they maybe only get one board seat and you got 4, so you think, oh, they got 25% of the vote. Next thing you know, they can restrict if you can get bank financing. They could restrict future investors. They can restrict whatever you agree to, and that becomes a negative covenant. So actually they have some negative control without having 50 or 51% of the ownership. So when we talk about finding and taking the right money, finding the investors, let's talk about the first stage, friends and family. Maybe even before that, yourself. I don't know that, on yourself, I don't think probably have to discuss that too much. But even on friends and family, I think, Chris and others made it pretty clear what you commit to legally, you're committing to. And it has to, withstand the test of time. So I'm not going to spend too much time on finding and taking money from friends and family. The obvious, and I do some of the mentoring, that Mike asked me to do here locally, and some people show they don't have any friends or family. Maybe they're 23 years old, they're right out of college, they don't have any money, they got loans, their parents can't put any money in. And so what do? Well, obviously, if you can get into an accelerator, that'd be an awesome place to get to. And we've seen that at least once at the Global Insurance Accelerator, where Bruce and I and Tage and Mike are all active in. Bruce is on the board representing American Equity Insurance. And we took one student group out of Iowa State, a clinic note, and truly they had no other money. They'd won maybe a $5,000 JPEG contest. Maybe along the way they got another 5 or 10 from another contest. So their entire cap table really was the money from the accelerator, and then their other sources of revenue were some contests that they had won. That was it. So they had no friends and family. They then ended up raising some money to go against the demo fund that they were able to get from the state kind of after they left the accelerator. So those are probably your sources. If you literally have no friends and family, you got to win some contests, you got to go to get into an accelerator, you got to go for some state. To get most state, you're going to have some matching equity from somewhere. Any questions on that? We can just take questions along the way on that stage. Okay. On Angel, this is obviously a much bigger area. So I know I talked to somebody early on, and now I'm not sure if he's here. He said he was from Davenport. Davenport guy here? You're Davenport as well. There's another gentleman.
Yeah, he's my partner.
He's partner, okay. Okay, yeah, that's right. Anybody else from outside of Des Moines? Outside of Central Iowa?
Mason City.
Mason City? Yeah. Where you live in Des Moines part of the year?
I'm from Des Moines. Iowa.
Steve, at this point, you're from Des Moines. That ship has sailed.
I am. I'm here for life.
Born in Iowa, we don't have ships.
Were you going to say like Berlin or somewhere?
That's right. That's right.
What were you going to say?
I I didn't listen to the question.
Well, you know, and people ask me this all the time. You know, there was a group, again, from Colorado for almost 15 years, group from Colorado. I said, boy, Sean, can you help us? And I said, well, we should go do some angel fighting, you know, angel round. They said, well, can you get us in? I said, in Colorado, or, you know, and they said, no, in Des Moines. I go, we're not gonna be likely to invest in a Colorado company here in Des Moines on a, you know, $50,000 or $100,000 round. We're gonna, you know, people are gonna wanna be active, they're gonna wanna know what's involved, get involved, they're gonna maybe try to help you. It'll be pretty hard if you're, you know, 700 miles away. Next thing you know, they said, well, we have an investor in Chicago. And I said, well, maybe go to the angel clubs that are in Chicago. I mean, you know, the deal about angel clubs is typically you're gonna be, you need a lead or you need a group close to where you're at. Now, I know in Mason City, what is it, Nyack or something like that, they have a, I think a little bit of, they've done some around the John Papa Gun Center. I think they've done some things that, you know, again, maybe your business is mobile, maybe it's not. Davenport, I don't really know as much about Davenport, Quad Cities. They have an angel club out there, Mike, or Jay's, or?
I don't think so.
Not yet.
They do. And, you know, there is a group, Plains Angels here, then there's kind of a Plains Angels, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids. I don't know if you would tie into that or not, but let's talk about the one here, since obviously most of us are here. The one here is an active one. I think there's 80 plus people registered. Currently, there's even more people that have been part of it in the past. They're probably just waiting to hear about a deal that kind of, you know, gets them excited. You know, a lot of angel investors invest in something they understand. So if it's an ag deal and they have an ag background, they may get more interested. If it's an insurance deal and they have an insurance background, they might, you know. And a lot of people won't, you know, go from I'm an ag investor and then jump on a tech deal that's not ag related, and vice versa. So you need an angel group to be kind of big because you never know what's going to come that's going to kind of rise to the top and get to be presented the next month. What I like about angel clubs from being a participant on any side of it is it's an association, a loose association of other people that also are kind of intellectually stimulated on hopefully making money. And obviously, in this case, we're talking about investing, or we're talking about actually raising money. But I think what's important is getting involved in that, finding out if you're able to present, hopefully getting to the point where you present. You'll hopefully find some people in your industry, in your space, whether it's tech or ag, or wherever it is. They'll hopefully propel you to the next level. Because in the angel round, you're not done. Unless you instantly have some big cash flow business that needs no money for growth, right? It's just a stepping stone. And I think Tage and I use some different words. It's not meant to confuse you. People use different words, but that level of angel round could be, you know, 50 to 200,000 round. That's kind of your initial round. And again, I don't know. We're not talking about a specific business, how much you may need to raise. But seed or post-seed, I mean, these are bigger and bigger rounds. I mean, these might be $250,000 rounds or $500,000 rounds, hopefully on progressively higher valuations, right? And then finally, when you're really propelling your growth, if you really need to have a lot more money, could be to build a sales organization, could be to build logistics, could be to grow more robust IT, could be a little bit of all of them, right? Then you might finally get to a true institutional, you know, Series A. So let's talk about it. We talked about angel. I think that's best in your local community. In our local community, if you actually have some, have some interest, between Tage's involvement and Mike's, they will actually take you to, I think Tage talked about a collection of like 6 states or 8 states. 8 states. So kind of with the same docs, the same format. So that's pretty powerful if you get some strength. They're going to look to the one that you're local with within those 8 states to kind of probably find your lead. Your lead probably going to come out of Oklahoma or Nebraska, could. You know, they probably look to have the lead be where you live. Seed, okay, seed and post, they kind of lump those together. Those could still be kind of angel rounds. They could be rounds, Scott left. But the gentleman from Next Level, and there's other funds like that that are in the 10 to 20, $30 million range. They're looking at $250,000 pieces, $500,000 pieces, maybe even $1 million piece. And there's other funds like that might be at the $1 to $2 million, $1 to $3 million. And those, you could argue, well, that's already a Series A. It just depends on what you're raising, at what stage, where you're at, in your growth cycle, how much they might have to spend within one of their funds. So, starting with seed, post-seed, and Series A, you're kind of getting more and more sophisticated investor. You're looking for bigger and bigger checks. And as you start to get towards Series A, let's say you've done done every step, you've done it well. By the time of that, you may be out of Iowa. Or you may or may not be in Iowa. I'm assuming right now you're kind of based here. But at the same time, even if you're going to Chicago or Minneapolis or Kansas City or even one of the coasts, they may look to have a local lead still here. Because then you get back to who's monitoring maybe monthly board meetings, who's coming in and maybe being involved in executive, hierarchical, and strategic planning. And again, as the dollars get bigger, you can expect more involvement. Okay, so, where am I at there? Okay. This is probably more important than who you're getting it from. Maybe you think that's the most important. But this is really what I want to talk about more than that is, don't take more money than you need. A lot of people say, I'm going to take all the money I can get. Well, let's just say it's a $2 million valuation or even $1 million. And let's say it's a $1 million valuation, you're really young, it's kind of your angel / early seed, and you really wanted to raise 20%, which means you would lose about 18% of the company, right? Because it'd be a 1.2 million post money, 1 million pre-money. And all of a sudden you took $500,000. Now it's $1 million pre, it's $1.5 million post. You've now given up a third of your company. So it ends up being, the term right there, the most expensive money you'll ever raise. You really don't want to get oversubscribed early unless you really need that money. Now, if you need that money to get to your MVP to a ready product, you need that money to get to a product. But if you can take it in stages, that's why I kind of broke out the angel, the early seed, and the post seed. If you can actually take it in steps at higher and higher valuations, you're going to retain more of your company. I'm calling it your company, right? Your individual companies. Does that make sense? We heard that all before. Maybe I shouldn't go over it so long.
Hey, Sheldon, question on that. So how do you manage, because obviously it takes time to raise capital, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're constantly doing it in stages, then clearly you're putting a lot of time and energy into just raising money over and over again versus when you say, hey, we just need to get X amount of dollars, so we just totally focus on growing the company and not have to worry about 6 months from now going through this whole process again.
Well, and that's a great point. You're probably not raising money for 6 months at a time. I mean, I think the best example is, you really have your mindset of a certain amount of money, keep on using this 200,000 or 250,000. All of a sudden, there's enough interest you could take more. If you don't have to raise that valuation, you're going to give away a pretty big chunk at that point. You're going to, you need to just be mindful, and I don't think they're in 6 months increments unless your burn rate is that high. If your burn rate is 30, 40, 50,000 a month, you probably don't want to raise just $250,000. If your burn rate's 50, you can't probably raise money for 5 months before you're back out on the market the day you close. So you have to understand your burn rate. I mean, is there going to be any sales growth during that stage? There's no sales growth, and you got this money so you could, say, burn more money. You got to be mindful how much you're burning and how quick you'll be back in the market. I can't give you an exact example, but higher your burn rate, the more money you need to raise. But if your valuation is low on the left side of the scale, you're going to give away a very big piece of your company early. And then at $2.5 million, and you got to raise another $1 million. That's 40%. You might have already gotten rid of 25%. You may find yourself a founder at 10% of the company. And that might be fine. I'd rather have 1% of a $1 billion company than 90% of a nothing company, right? But you got to figure out how to get there, and that's where good advisors will help you. Any other questions on that? That's a good question. So let's say you raise this money. You did raise this money. I think Teddy's maybe talked about.
This is while you're raising, the idea was while you're raising the money, you're talking to people while you're raising.
Follow up and staying in contact. So what did you want? I did it based upon you've already raised the money. What did you want?
My apologies, we got off the. So maybe I could just talk for a minute, since I just left Sheldon in a very bad place. What I wanted to talk about here, real quick, is, and most of this is relative, you don't raise money and finish that in a week. So I talked to Sheldon on Monday about raising some capital from him, and then I talked to Tage the week after, and now I'm talking to, I don't know, Bruce, somebody. You're gonna take several weeks, someone wants to do this. What you don't want to do is forget to talk to Sheldon until you haven't talked to him for a month. You don't want him to forget about you. So what I wanted to talk about a little bit is you need to have a strategy that says, okay, I'm gonna do an update to my potential investors every couple of weeks, every 2 or 3 weeks. Here's where I'm at, here's what I'm looking for. Does anybody have a contact here? I have, this many people have said yes, this much, you have to be careful, okay, you have to talk to your attorney about this, soft, the necessity of accredited investors, but you don't want to let these people forget you. If Sheldon says, yeah, I'm interested, and then you don't talk to him for 2 months, he doesn't have unlimited funds, so he may have done his deal and said, gosh, I wish you would have called me, I thought you were good, so I put that money in a different company. And now I'm out right now, I don't have any more money to invest until next quarter or next half. So the real point here is that, and I obviously did not do a good job of telling Sheldon what I wanted, I apologize. You don't want to just talk to them one time you pitch and then go away until it's time to ask for a check, or go away thinking they know where you are. They're going to forget about you, I mean, most likely, right? Especially if it's an active angel investor that's looking at 4 or 5 deals, 6 deals a month. I don't hear from you for 60 days, my assumption is, wow, you're doing great. Let's get us raised, and that's cool. If you didn't need me, fine. But you do want to follow up. You want to have a plan on how you're going to keep track of all these investors, because you're trying to get to yes or no, and you want to make sure that they don't forget about the ones that are potential yes. So, again, my apologies.
Mike, quick question for you.
Yeah.
So earlier you kind of alluded to going for no, basically. You want to get that no.
If you can't get yes.
Right. Well, but you say enough no's equal a yes. That's just math. We all know it.
Yep.
So let's say I talk to you and Sheldon both, and you guys both say no. But so I'm going to keep going on my investing. How often should I talk to you guys at that point on for future rounds? Should I say okay every quarter, every 6 months? Hey, just want to let you know, Mike, I'm doing great here. I got my funding finished.
I think we're all a little different. I think that if you're still raising that round, and if I just said no, don't ever talk to me again, which I don't do, I mean, you got to take what kind of note did you get. If you said, look, it really doesn't fit my portfolio, you might still keep in touch with me and say, I'm halfway done, I'm 3/4 way done. I'm still looking for these people. Once you've closed the round, you should let people know, yeah, we successfully closed a round. Good news. And then, yeah, if you want to keep us on the list for future investment rounds, I'd say a couple of times a year is plenty. And I don't think any of us would be offended by a note today, just want to let you know where we are. You do have to be conscious of accredited investors, you need to communicate with them versus others.
I was specifically thinking of Matt, because Matt said, he came back and got more money from somebody that told him no.
Yeah, I mean, and remember, you're in a small community here, right? There aren't 10,000 angels here, there probably aren't even 1,000 angels, active angels of any form in the state of Iowa, I doubt. So it's a pretty small group, and what wasn't interesting to a group a year ago may become interesting. So to me, it can't hurt to stay in touch.
Yeah, of course, it's, how much am I flying, how much am I being helpful, I guess.
Yeah, I think that a couple times a year, once you've already raised, is to, yeah. I mean, most people are pretty good about saying, yeah, you don't need to send us something.
Unsubscribe.
There's another question.
Yeah, my question was along the same lines. I had sort of the same thing, which was if you pitch to an investor, you don't hear from them, kind of the message I heard earlier in the day was, well, that's the same thing as saying no. Like that's what Matt was saying, is they don't really say no. They just don't call you back, or they don't follow up.
Depends on the investor.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a lot that don't.
So it seems like there's a fine line. There's you have to figure out which is you're not hearing from them because the answer is no, and
Right.
which are you just need to continue to follow up and stay top of mind so that eventually we get
That's
yes.
a good question. So there's another reason you continue to follow up with those people who didn't say no, because they might find or know somebody that would say yes. So while I might not have said yes, I might be happy to keep hearing from you how you're doing. And sometimes if you've raised nothing, we're a little worried. It's like, oh boy, I am a lead, I don't have a first investor yet. Then a month later, I hear, oh, they got half the round. Wow. Gee, maybe I was wrong. You've got to go back and look. Because as an investor, maybe I blew that call, maybe I didn't understand something. I'd like to know who those investors are. If you were in, let's say you're in the agricultural space, and a former founder of one of the big ag companies around here put 40% of your first round in as a lead investor, I know a lot of people might suddenly get very interested who said no beforehand because they're chasing that person. So again, I don't close the door unless you have to close the door.
Sometimes they'll qualify the no, right, with regard to their concerns or something like that, so there's certainly nothing wrong with going back and saying, hey, just want to let you know that we did land this contract, and we did this. And the other thing is, one good thing, if you haven't heard, there's nothing wrong with sending some type of correspondence and implying that we're assuming no, don't want to bother you any further, if anything's different, let us know. Or here's an update, I'm assuming you're no in this round, hadn't heard from you, but if anything changed, let me know. So you're communicating, giving them an update, and giving them a soft touch as well.
And the beauty of an email is as long as you've got it as a list, you'll have to send them email. You're not necessarily sending each one to each individual. Now, if somebody's a really hot lead, you might want to send them a personal note. But I'm just a believer, you keep those people on the list and you say, hey, interested parties in my company, so I give you an update, we landed 2 deals, had a little hiccup on our tech platform that didn't work out so well, we raised 30% of our round in the bank and 20% soft circle, promised. Those are great updates to get, and like I said, sometimes it will motivate someone to change their mind. Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I would just add that, like the Plains Angels, if you're on the Angels side, someone pitches like yourself, we're actually given a piece of paper that we fill out so that Mike could actually get back to you and say, you pitched 25 people today, 7 of them want to follow up. So actually, in some cases, they'll do it for you. I think the only other little bit of advice that I throw out, kind of going back, is, on that friends and family, obviously you're doing that yourself. Maybe that angel round you're doing yourself. At some point, if you're, building a nice company, needing bigger and bigger, you're going to engage somebody like a JD, somebody like that to help you. Because unless you really are, finance is part of your background, let's say you're a tech guy or whatever, sales, whatever, wherever you kind of, whatever you have internal, whatever your bench is that's strong, kind of outsource the rest. So if you don't have a money raiser or CFO type, then you might outsource that piece. Again, the bigger dollars to raise. And then they know where that money is. They know the likely investors in your town. They know the likely funds in your town. They know the likely funds that invest in other things in your industry, maybe within a multi-state area. And that's what you're paying them for, that kind of expertise.
Thanks very much. All right, next up, Darren. I apologize, Darren. I gave you one of the hardest ones.
I get the keep people awake here.
I know. Hard, but really important.
Yeah,
It's the style.
yeah, it's all about the delivery, right?
It's the look.
Yeah. Okay, so my name's Darian. I'm the founder and CEO of Men's Style Lab. I had the opportunity to go through an accelerator out of Wisconsin called Generator. And to date I've raised about $3 million, 300 of which was from the state Propel Fund. So I've gone through that process as well. I run a company, we're in the East Village, I have 12 employees, and I'm excited for the opportunity here to share a little bit about my experience on preparing for raising money. And sort of just sitting in the back, I wrote down a couple of things that have been resources for me as a founder that I've found helpful, that fall in line with a lot of the conversation that we're having here today. One is a website called Crunchbase, crunchbase.com. And what you'll find on crunchbase.com is most of you probably know who your competitors are, and so you can look up your competitors on Crunchbase, and it'll tell you who the founders are, how much money they've raised, which funds have given them money, and you can go into all sorts of profiles. So in addition to having your angel list profile or what have you, I would strongly encourage you to set up a Crunchbase profile for you and your team, because it'll be very helpful for you along the way. And so now I'm in the process of getting ready for a Series A raise, which is sort of our next stage of funding, and I'm going and saying, all right, who else in the subscription space has raised a Series A, and what were the funds that they pitched to? And then on the back end of it, I've got my nice little LinkedIn premium account, so I can email them and find out who they are and say, hey, you're in the subscription space, so we're in the clothing subscription space, so I'm reaching out to Blue Apron, who's in the food subscription space, right? Hey, you're in the subscription space, so are we. We're getting ready for our Series A. I'm wondering if you or somebody on your team might have a moment to review my pitch deck and give me any feedback on that process. And so, anyhow, crunchbase.com. The other thing in relationship to keeping people updated is a website called updatemyvc.com. And it's just a one-page landing page website. But what you'll get off of that is an outline that I've used, and I've gotten really great feedback from investors saying, wow, this is really detailed, but it's also consistent. I just stole the outline off of a website, updatemyvc.com, but it kind of goes through, here's the TLDR, like highlight and lowlights to kick it off with, and then here's a breakdown of any updates related to marketing, business development, sales, shifts in our team, asks that I have of the investors, and it just kind of runs you through the list. And so every time I give an update, it has the same exact sections. It allows me to compartmentalize my thinking and my thoughts on my updates so I don't just word vomit into an email in random directions. And I'd like to think that on the investor side, it makes it a bit more consistent and easier to keep pace over time with what my updates have been. So hopefully there's that. My final thing is, the thing that I think has helped me is being a good pitch man for my company. Like, whether you think you're in sales or not, you have a company, and companies are supposed to make money, and therefore you are in sales, and you should learn how to tell your story and sell your story. And so record yourself, say what you have to say in front of a mirror, do whatever that needs to look like, get some feedback from some people on it. But I think one of the things that I would say has helped me get to the due diligence stage is like getting the pitch right to begin with, creating enough interest, and kind of similar to the idea of having a one-page document. I see some pitch decks that I have in front of me that are like 60 slides, and it's clearly a 2-hour pitch. And I would encourage you to like aim for a 10-minute pitch, and so that you create questions. And you can put a lot of your slides into an appendix stage, and sort of the best practice is then, let's say that you do have 50 slides in your deck, you're going to present on 10, which we talked about earlier, but then I might have the other 30, and then when you open it up for Q&A, either for an investor or for a group, they can say, well, what about like who are the other competitors in your space? And you'll look down on your sheet and you'll say, oh, that's on slide 18, and so you can just hit 1-8 enter, jump right to slide 18, and here you go. And it shows some thoughtfulness that you've really thought through the different angles of questions that you could be asked. So those are just some of my general best practices. So to talk about the prep side of going through diligence, there's something that is referred to as a data room. I didn't know what this was when I first started in Style Lab, but then essentially this is a place for you to pack all this stuff virtually. I use Dropbox personally, but you might be able to use Google Drive. But basically, I set up a file, it's called Data Room, and then you click on it, and I have other folders, and I have one for corporate, management, etc., as you see here. And then I've outlined some talking points for each of these. And I'll also just point out that this is part of your handout. So I just basically took what was on the slides, and it's all bulleted out here. So feel free to look at that as I'm talking here, and if you have a question or something that you want to dive deeper into, we can do so. I thought about just screenshotting my own data room, but I didn't know how helpful that would be to you guys. So I will say that I don't have every single one of the points that are listed in any one of these sections in my own data room. I think you have to pick and choose what's relevant for your company, because some things just won't be. All right, so on the first folder that you'll have is a corporate folder. This is basically all of the legal documentation and the cap table. So I have my articles, my bylaws, the signature for the Secretary of State, like my retailer license, and my cap table are all in this one nice, easy place. Everybody's gonna, if they're going to invest in you, they're gonna want to see what were the terms that everybody else invested into, and this really gives them an easy place to go and visit. So you have timelines, etc. Here. I'll run through these and then I'll just open it up for questions, I guess, but feel free to raise your hand in the middle as well. On management and employees, what I've done is I've basically created a document that has a link to all of my key staff's LinkedIn profiles, and I've made sure that they've done everything that they can do to get to all-star status on their LinkedIn profile, so it makes it really easy. But as a company, what we've done is you can put a cover photo onto your LinkedIn profile, much like you do on Facebook or Twitter, and so we all have the same exact background on our cover profile on LinkedIn. We have the same description of MinStyleLab. We have a MinStyleLab description on LinkedIn for a company page. And so I try to do what I can do to really organize how my company is represented professionally online. And then through this process, I have that link. Separately then I have, okay, here's the org chart. And I would say you can put both existing employees into your org chart as well as anticipated future hires. You're raising money for a reason. You need to make some strategic hires. So you might put the position and instead of TBD, to be determined, you might be to be hired, TBH, underneath that instead of, say, a person's name. Which kind of goes into the idea of here's the projected hires in the next 12 months. You might have certain key employee agreements built in if you've made a key hire. Maybe somebody has some sort of way that they're investing stock or they're vesting stock through your employee stock option program differently than another hire. Maybe you're offering a particular employee to be able to have recruited them and a little extra side like health insurance stipend or something that you're not giving to your other employees. Maybe you promise that for the first 2 years or what have you. There's certain things that you might have done along the way. You'll capture that here. And then sometimes employees leave, and usually if employees leave, it can be under not great circumstances, and so it's good to just document those. And the reason that that's important is because VCs or other investors at later stages want to make sure that you're not going to get sued through something that might have happened through that process, so it's good just to document whatever that may have been. I've personally, usually if we have to part ways with somebody, unless it's like an all-outright, we're firing them because of something that they did. Sometimes we just have to move in a different direction, or we outgrew an employee. Then we'll put together a severance offer and sort of legalize this idea that you're not going to sue us. We're leaving this on as good a terms as we can, but I would put that severance material into this particular folder. All right, so the metrics and the financials. This is a pretty detailed one. I couldn't keep the 30-point font on this one and keep it on one slide.
29 and a half.
29 or 29 and a half for Sheldon in the back. But how I do this is differently than, again, I've just tried to simplify this. So I have our tax documents, and then I have folders that say 2013, 2014, 2015. And when you click on those folders, and it has the statements prepared by our accountant for our P&L, our balance sheet, our cash flow statements by month, and then there's sort of quarter to date and year to date. But I have them organized by year, basically. And then alongside of that, I have my actual Excel file projections. And here's all of the details around what my projections are with a historic record of where we've been to date. And then the key thing is as I get my accounting statements each month from my accountant, I go and I update the Excel spreadsheet so that it's always up to date, and then I re-upload the most updated version into my data room so that in a moment's notice I can always have that available. So earlier was Tej who made reference to one time he asked for some information and he got it within the hour, and that was, when he glanced back at me and made a comment to me in the hall. I was like, hey, you teed me up really well for that, right? It gives investors confidence when you have these things already prepared and ready. And so that's what I'm sharing with you here. And then along with your metrics and financials, it is important to have those numbers, but it's also important to have, here's why we have these assumptions, or here's what the history has been, here's some of the underlying trends. Help the investors understand what it is they're looking at in that spreadsheet, because how you define a particular term, for net sales as an example for us, it's a really important dynamic, because they might then lean into a certain number that necessarily isn't relevant to the broader picture. So you want to make sure that you can facilitate that to the best of your ability by saying, here's the key performance indicators that we look at when managing to this particular spreadsheet. All right, your market, your customers, your products. All right, so this just depends on who you are. We've sent over 20,000 boxes. I don't have a spreadsheet with all 20,000 customers in it, right? So when it says list all customers, I think if you're a business or you're B2B and you're primarily serving a dozen larger companies, et cetera, you can put key customers or customers that have been with you a long time. There's a number of ways that you can approach that. any contracts that you have in place. So for us, we don't necessarily have contracts in place with our customers. We have terms and conditions with each individual customer. We have terms and conditions for what they, in a sense, they check that box when they place their order that they agree to. Also with each of the vendors. So the way we make money is we buy clothes at wholesale and we sell them at retail. And so there's vendor relationship documents that we'll put in there to say, here's the net 30 terms that we have with this brand, or the net 90 terms we have with a different brand, or what have you. Industry research in regards to market size, competitors, things of that nature. Some of the things that I found helpful with that is, again, going to Crunchbase as an example. I always do Google searches on who my competitors are. I found different ways to visualize that to be very helpful, and so you might put certain parameters that differentiate you. Say, as example, like I think we have a slide in one of our appendix slides for my deck that price is one of the variables. You know, when people are looking for clothing, price is a consideration. So where do we fall in lines of price? And that's one way to sort of measure yourself against your competitors. You might put a matrix together, and we've also done that where we say, okay, here's the top 5 people competitively for us. Here's all of the things that are a part of the consideration. How many days do they get to try on the product? Do they have to pay up front or after the fact? Is there a return policy? Is shipping included? So whatever the parameters are with which you compare yourself to, or a person that's shopping against all the competitors in your space, what are they comparing it to? Help your investors just to visualize that as best as you can and put that in here. Summary of technology and product development roadmap. This is really important because investors like to know that you're investing into that infrastructure. And so it's good to have a plan in place that says, here's what we've done to date in the area of technology, but with your money, we're going to invest in these particular areas, and this is what that return is going to be. With your money, we're going to be able to serve, today we serve 8 customers per day per stylist. With your investment into technology, we'll be able to serve 50 customers per day per stylist. And then review of customer acquisition costs for the past 18 months. So what we've done over time, when I first started, we just did Facebook ads. So that was sort of an easy metric. How much money did I spend on a Facebook ad? How many customers signed up? What did they spend? And they had a really easy deal. But then we got into PR and multiple social media advertising outlets, and just several dynamics started coming into play. We're on Google AdWords, et cetera, et cetera. And so now we have to track multiple channels, know what our spend is. We are producing our own content and blogging and style guides and photography, and everything has a cost, right? What is the cost of acquisition when you include model photo shoots and as a part of like the preparation for your marketing materials? It's an all-in cost. And so now I have like a 30-page Google Doc that my director of marketing keeps up to date and say, here's what we've done in the area of marketing, here's what the cost of acquisition is for our Facebook channel, here's what the cost of acquisition is through Google. But not only that, we've screenshotted what that Facebook ad looks like, and we're putting, here's how much we spent, here's how many clicks it got, what the click-through percentage was, so on and so forth. And the more detailed you can be about that, then what is that giving investors who are looking it over? Confidence, right? And that's what they need in order to write you a check.
And I would say, especially if you're in the online business, if you don't have a face-to-face or directional relationship, this is absolutely critical.
Right. So no matter what your channel is, you have leads, you have that funnel. And so for us, that funnel starts with saying, all right, well, we got a website. Here's what our conversion is on our website. 10% of all visitors start the sign-up process. 10% of those people that start finish it. And so you can create this funnel of sorts. It costs us X amount per lead that starts that. So now we have over 120,000 leads in the pipeline that we're nurturing, and here's what examples of emails that go out to nurture those people look like. So we basically try to just document everything that we're doing as it relates to marketing and capture every angle of information on here's what we're doing, here's all the measurables around it. Partners, suppliers, and agreements. I guess, I mentioned earlier, this is a place where you can put some of those vendor relationships with us as vendors, but you might also put some of the banking, or if you have a loan or certain terms with that, you can add that into this particular piece. If we were to private label clothing instead of a deal with a manufacturing plant or something, that documentation go here. And then finally, PR and customer reviews. So for us, this is an important component. So again, similar to how I had a document with links to our LinkedIn profiles, I have a document with links to all of the press mentions and articles. And so now we've been in Forbes and the Today Show and Huffington Post, and I want to be able to tell people about it. And so I just make that easy and I create links to those. Now, in some cases, we've been in industry publications where you have to be a member to have access to those. You can't just click a link and then read them. And so in those cases, I put PDFs of that article and I filed it away here. You might put Net Promoter Score or customer surveys and reviews and links to some of the other information that people have to say about you. I found that typically VCs that are really going through the process, they might want to randomly call a few customers and so prove that there's like legitimate, what do you have to say about it? And you might be able to give them some of the information here through that process. So
I would just add, you mentioned on the customer list, if you have 1,000 customers paying you $10,000 a year, they're going to want the whole list. They're going to want to see it, so you got to prove it.
Okay, so that's the nuts and bolts of it. I know that I just sort of data dumped a ton of information on you, but I'd just say, for me, the process is find as many people that I can knock on as many doors as possible. Where I can get an intro, I'm trying to get an intro. I think that it's important to note that there's plenty of investors that might not be in a position to give you money, but might be really interested and be able to make some phone calls on your behalf. But the best thing for me that I think some of the things that I've done well is one, I use that update my VC outline, and I have 2 lists on MailChimp. One is my investor list, and then I send out a revised version of that same email to my mentor list. And so you're at an event today, you're going to exchange some business cards, ask that person, hey, do you mind if I send you an update on my company? Be happy to add you into my distribution. They can always unsubscribe if they don't want it. But I found that I can generally, I always have asks. So my ask for my investors might be different than my asks for my mentors. Sometimes they're the same. But sometimes I just let people know sort of casually, like, hey, I'm getting prepared for the next round. I'm not formally saying, hey, I'm raising, you want to write me a check, but I'm preparing for my next round. I'm looking to do some market research into this area, or if you know anybody that's successfully raised money, you might be able to make an intro. So you can kind of say you're raising money without actually saying you're raising money. And that has helped me get some introductions, that has led to some funding. And so just be mindful of that. I would also say, like, always be willing to own where something didn't go right, because there's always something that didn't go right, and investors need to hear that too. So highlights, lowlights, things of that nature, just make sure that you're keeping those things updated. From there, knock on as many doors as you can. If you nail the pitch, and I think part of nailing that pitch is just investing a lot of time in the visuals of your slide deck and how you tell that story. I would say something personally that's worked well for us is I get the deck ready and then I send it to a company that we use for the design side. Like, I want it to look polished. I don't want it to look like a pitch deck that was made in 1990 with PowerPoint, right? I want it to look sophisticated. You're investing into a company, and so it's well worth me spending $100 to make sure that this thing, looks appropriate for raising $1 million more.
Especially with the word styles.
Yeah.
Who do you use there?
I use 8-7 Central. They're located in the East Village. They've done all of our branding, and we've gone to New York and other places that have been pretty impressed with what we've put together to represent our brand through them. But Saturday Manufacturing, I think, is also a good company that I'm familiar with. So do everything you can to get the pitch right and get to this stage. And then when you say, oh yeah, all right, hey, the pitch was good. I'd like to set up a meeting with you and some of our partners. Can you send me over a little bit of the information about whatever? And you say, yeah, sure, it's on its way, right? And you just copy the link out of Dropbox and send it. I guarantee you they're gonna raise their eyebrow and say, wow, this person really has their stuff together.
Give us a little color, kind of like what we heard from Matt earlier,
Yeah.
who your investors are and in the retail space related to that. That's one question. And the other one I was wondering about is, following up on what Sheldon was talking about, is there a point in time when your business, and maybe this is something you're telling your investors, you get to, that you can grow the company organically, so you don't need to keep going back to the market for money? Is there sort of
Yeah.
something like
Yeah, great
fish
question.
line in your mind?
Absolutely. I think, well, one, we had to pivot, you know, from where our original model was. And so there are things like what was said to Matt's point is like you have your projection and then the investor's gonna like take that at about half. And I wish I would have taken it at about half, right? Personally. But I think, you know, for me, one, there's investor groups, there's Gopher Angels in Minnesota, there's a number of them in Chicago, we have the Plains Angels here, there's the Nebraska Angels, I think there's Dundee Beach, there's Next Level BC, there's a number of Midwest related capital funds, and you should try pitching to all of them. But you're gonna have to apply and you're gonna have to go through Gus, and the good news about that is once you already have that information, it's pretty easy to copy and paste, say here's who our company is, here's the bio on me, but you have to do the work on that. And you know, separate yourself. Just like a job interview, you want to nail it. You want to look good. You want to speak well. You want to have a resume that represents you well. So I found that when I've gone through those processes, I've been fortunate to at least get to where I can present a pitch, and I have confidence in my pitch. So I think that's worked well for me to get to the due diligence stage. In terms of getting to a place where you don't have to raise capital, you know, I think that that's ideal for everybody because your investors don't want diluted more than they have to be diluted. But it can also be you just can't predict every bend along the way, and so. I think be careful about what you promise, but be clear about what your intentions are, and be vocal about when you have to change course and what you're learning through that process. And I'm not an investor, but that's what I try to do. And I've been trying to get to cash flow positive as quickly as I can, but also I think what I've learned is that you can make what seems like a small decision here and have a large ripple effect elsewhere, so it's maybe more cautious about making just quick decisions in an effort to accommodate the idea of cash flow positive. And so you always have to be mindful of how much money's in the bank and how much you're burning, and know how much time you have left to raise money if you do need to raise money. I think that's when you get into the idea of down round. There's some other things where you can get caught in a little bit of trouble there, but generally, like, yeah, I think you go for everything that you can. If you were paying attention to your unit economics early on, I would strongly encourage you to do that. When I started my company, Trunk Club, is our most imperative competitor, and they were sending 10 items in a box. They had stylist phone calls, and I had just learned that they made $20 million in revenue the year that I started my company. I was like, well, that's clearly working, right? And so I got into an accelerator, and then after graduating the accelerator, Trunk Club was acquired for $350 million by Nordstrom, and I was able to close my seed round within a month. Right? Because everybody loved the idea, like, whoa, there's a proven exit, this is like a hot market. It was awesome. And so I got my money and I tried executing just like everything that I knew that Trunk Club was executing on. But then I also learned is there's a significantly high cost of inventory associated with doing so. There's a significantly high cost with all the people that we had to hire to package those boxes up, et cetera. And so then we ended up pivoting. We ended up saying, all right, we're taking out the phone call. We're minimizing our items. Instead of 10 or more, we're going to go to 5 items in a box. We're going to automate some things on the survey sign-up process. We're going to charge a styling fee on the upfront side to qualify some customers and reduce the number of times that people send everything back to us so we get our models orchestrated. And what's funny about that, to me, is that since then, Trunk Club's now introduced a styling fee. Trunk Club's now reduced the number of try-on days. They've done all these things that I did a year ago because I was paying attention to the unit economics, and I don't think they ever were. I think they just got $12 million in the bank and just ran for it. And so, yeah, they were able to acquire customers fast, but I don't think that they were ever actually making money on those customers. And so that's kind of the thing about it. Yeah, so for whatever that might be helpful for you.
When you've gotten some press
Yeah.
in various media, have you then experienced any inbound inquiries from investors as a result?
I have it from investors, you know, I've had investors that thought that I would get more inquiries from press mentions, but that really hasn't been the case for me. And I think it just depends on the audience, like, I don't know that being in Forbes really did a whole lot for us, other than it's something cool that we can put on our homepage, and hopefully it plays a part in a decision where somebody decides that we're credible and they want to sign up. But outside of that, it wasn't like we got 20,000 website visits in an hour, and, you know, we're running like chickens with their head cut off. Where we've got the most, personally, for our company, where we've gotten the most return is on YouTube reviews. It's a very visual experience, it's a product-driven dynamic. And so when people open the box on a YouTube video and then try the clothes on and it fits them and they're saying, hey, I love this experience, we convert 22% of the traffic that comes from those YouTube videos. And so I'd much rather have that than a fraction of a percent from Forbes magazine. So that's where we're going to continue to invest our time.
All right, thanks, Jared.
Thanks, guys.